just saying what the topic is and then we can break out? Okay. I don't know how to work the computer.
Left click arrow.
Is it going?
You click it again. It should be.
That one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, y'all, what we're going to be talking about today is the difference between leftism and liberalism. I know that I think the meaning between the two has, well, the definition of the two has lost its meaning, where what these once were different are now looked at as the same thing. So, are we going to break out or are we just going to go right now?
I think we should
Just break out?
I thought we were having
There's pretty few of us.
There's pretty few.
Yeah.
I didn't research the changes.
I think we
just
should
made
all
the
talk at
slides, man.
once.
Would anyone consider
That way everyone at the same time.
I can.
Help us out, Greg. It's my first day.
As a young man, when I was first inspired into politics, something I really enjoyed was Jon Stewart. That was like one of my first exposures. If you're not familiar with Jon Stewart, he was like the precedent guy that made political talk night shows popular. So before there was John Oliver, Samantha Bee, Colbert, Stephen Colbert, they were all interns at Jon Stewart's at Comedy Central, and he was incredibly liberal, but he was also willing to listen to conservatives, and he would always have conservatives on his show and just challenge their views. And one of the things that was beautiful about those times was that you had this guy who was clearly liberal, you knew what his views were, you knew that he agreed with higher taxes, you knew what his stance on abortion and all these other things were, but he still was willing to listen and hear out the other side, and he didn't demonize them in such a way that they weren't valuable as people with their own political opinions. But as we've matured as a society, well, actually I wouldn't even say mature, I would say we've regressed in some ways, because there's a lot of people who are on the extreme left side who we would regard as leftists, right? And I would distinguish those kinds of people from the Jon Stewart type of liberalism, where they were open-minded, yet we had meaningful distinctions on what our values and policy ideas were. Now, leftists are in such a position that they think that we are inherently bad as people because of the positions that we may hold or values that we may have. Now, as we've progressed as a society, well, I mean, as time has gone on, I feel like that has gotten worse. But I think people are starting to realize how bad that is, and I think people like Bill Maher, and I don't know if that's what Ellen DeGeneres is, you know, but she, if you haven't seen it, she's just...
Is she MSNBC?
No.
Talk show.
No, Ellen DeGeneres.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh, okay. Now. Dory.
She's Dory. She's very popular as like a comedian. She's in some circles. But she was caught sitting next to George Bush, right? And
Caught?
Yeah, she was caught. I use that word very, like, I meant to use that word. Like, she was caught sitting next to George Bush, and according to the leftists, that's just, like, you can't do that. That's totally impermissible. But because she got so much flack for it, instead of, like, caving in and being like, you know what, I did, it was wrong, he's terrible, she's like, no, like, sometimes there are people we don't necessarily agree with, but we should still love everyone, and we can still be friends with people despite the fact that we don't agree with them on every policy position. And I think we're maturing in a way because there are comedians like that. I think things that like Dave Chappelle and other comedians have been doing are helping us make progress as well. And I think there's other spheres where we're growing as people, but this is, I think it's going to go down in history as like a really silly time and a footnote, hopefully. But with that said,
Just to add on that, I read a quote the other day, Michael Jordan, when he came out with his shoe, he was being blasted by Democrats for not, and this is around, you know, Rodney King in the 90s, LA riots and stuff. He was being blasted for not voicing his opinions and standing up for the social justice at the time, and his response was simple. He just said, Republicans buy shoes too. So
capitalism can bring us together.
the market is colorblind.
Absolutely.
It doesn't see differences.
It sees green
Yep.
colors. But yeah, with that said, I think I do want to break us out into two groups. Do we have separate rooms, or we just...
Yeah,
we
got
have 2 rooms.
boss.
Two rooms?
You're not really familiar with our process here. We're going to kind of get some ideas from other groups so we can all be a little better informed about what each of us talked about in our in-depth discussions here. So awesome. What is your group? talk about that was very important to you that you'd like to share?
That was important to me. I think
It's like,
the
wow, I didn't know this or something.
that last point, do you think leftism will return closer to liberalism? I think a few of us follow the thought process that as leftists, or you find them, get like more and more loco, then eventually they'll disenfranchise the bulk of their voters. And that the more regular Democrats, the more liberal people will kind of realign. I mean, not conservatively, but just get closer back to center.
So you guys
we think
think it will shift back to the center?
I think that leftism will never return closer to liberalism, but the people that are enthralled by that will.
Yeah. So I've heard the opposite from the
Yeah.
other group, right? Well, I guess from you as well.
Yeah. It might just with the other.
Yeah, you're on the other side. So what do you all think about that? I heard you guys say no, it won't.
Yeah.
Like the people are gonna stay far on the left.
Well, we did kind of, we touched on that as well. We, from what I gathered, it was kind of that the leftists are going to become more extreme. There probably is going to be some clashes between the ideologically extreme left and stuff like Antifa, Proud Boys, stuff like that. And that's going to persist. However, fair-minded people are probably going to be disenchanted by seeing those things and become more moderate, or not. They don't find themselves appealing. A man or a woman with a wife and kids, like they don't want to see that kind of stuff, and they're
That
probably
sounds
not.
pretty conservative.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say mainly just men with the wives.
Yeah, well, I mean, wives can vote too. Right?
Well, no, I'm saying women with the wives probably won't be as conservative per se.
Like like Ellen DeGeneres, the example earlier, where she sat by George Bush. I'm sure she wouldn't want to see violence on behalf of what she believes.
But she's also like literally the 1% who's like filthy rich. I don't think it's fair to lump her in with
Now,
the.
she also has an incredibly large viewership that probably appeals to a lot of people.
But yeah, I actually know a lot of like writers that watch on.
Yeah.
That's true.
So yeah, I do think that modern thing, that's what we all would like to happen.
Yeah.
I still think they'll be too prideful to try to merge back and then form another group that's kind of conservative, but don't want to admit that it's conservative.
Just to be the contrarian, as not to frighten anybody away, but yeah,
I can get you a badge. Don't worry.
I think that it's just always going to be the left or the libertarians or the liberals, however you want to define that, will almost always just have to go with the group that's out of power, because the best liberal or the best right winger, the best left winger are, to be frank, the ones that don't have power.
I don't think that they'll ever return, because I think those are just two fundamentally different things. Ever since sort of like the 1965, where the leftism, like the liberals, they united behind ending segregation, which was at that time probably the last remaining symbol of hardcore racism. So once you get rid of that, there's no unifying platform. So the leftists, what do they just go full Antifa and they go.
But that was Republicans who wanted that. The Democrats still wanted segregation because there was no political shit. There was no party shit. I'm sorry.
But then there was like a platform.
Even if there was, we shouldn't forget what parties were what.
Exactly.
So like my point is like, well, why would they come together? Like if they alienate their base and they just die. Like I don't think there's any unifying platform anymore. Like they just diverge and they're just too separate.
I mean, there was gay marriage in the.
Occasionally, but now the gay marriage, then like
legalization of drugs.
Yeah. So there are gonna be times when they converge against. Like I think that naturally those are just two different.
I mean, I just don't think there were many libertarians who supported George W. Bush.
So does anyone else have any comments from their group we'd like to share? Anything we saw?
Everybody else is just modern.
Everyone's modern.
I guess with the nowadays with leftism will turn to liberalism, just like with the Overton window, like it's just getting more and more popular to go farther and farther left, to where in so many years.
I've never heard that before. You said that Overton window.
Rodrigo.
You don't know what the Overton window.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting.
It's just like the area
That's
of
why it
loud
makes you
discourse.
expand like that.
Yeah.
Some people explain.
The Overton window was basically the window, so to speak, where political discourse is accepted, some opinions. So nowadays saying that I am for gay marriage, I am for abortion before third trimester, that's in the Overton window, but saying like I believe there are two genders, that's not in the Overton window anymore, at least not in main social circles.
I would say that that's still part of the Overton window, because if you say that there are, it's like, that's not necessarily.
Yeah, but like, and maybe something really outside of Overton would be like, I don't know.
It's something unacceptable to
Something,
talk about.
yeah.
It's like nobody is for Nazi.
Political
Yeah,
discourse.
per se.
Post-birth abortion, yeah.
So it's getting more and more acceptable and farther and farther left, so I don't know how, if it's gonna be anywhere in the near future when it returns to a more libertarian center point.
Justin, you have anything to add?
No, I mean, the thing that I tried to, the analogy, I like to do analogies, is that I thought of is, the cup is leftism gonna eventually overflow that cup and it's gonna empty out, or is that cup just gonna get larger and larger and larger to just hold more of the crazy? I like to think that it's going to overflow at some point where it's just gonna. I feel like there's a majority of people on the left who, like we said, like the husbands with wives and kids and the wives with husbands and kids, like they still want the best for their family at the end of the day. So, I mean, when we're talking about eating babies to save the climate and stuff, I feel like they're gonna look at like, okay, that is so crazy that, I mean, I was with y'all up until that point. I'm not with you guys anymore. I believe it's gonna return back.
I think it's delicious. Whenever I see incidents of the left eating itself, I personally, I take pleasure in that.
Yes.
I think they call it Schadenfreude. I'm not sure.
Schadenfreude?
Yeah. But it's like when you get pleasure out of the misfortunes of another person.
You're like specifically a person that has done wrong.
But somebody
Yeah.
saves
We all had very good conversation, kind of similar conversation in the two different rooms, which is good to hear. You know, one final comment?
Yeah,
on it?
just what I think the best that I've seen on, I think he defined it very well, the difference between leftism and liberalism and sort of right wings is a leftist and a right wing. They're just, disagreeing on how the state should be used to enforce certain things, whereas sort of like the classical liberals, the state really shouldn't play a role at all. So I think it's just a matter of, well, what should the state be used for as far as left versus right, and the liberals. A liberal is just more like, well, the state shouldn't really do either of those.
I don't disagree with
At least with liberalism, you can actually sit and have a conversation with them, even though, like I said, they might not agree on every single thing, because most of the time, if you talk to them, they actually want a little bit more government involvement in certain situations, as to what we don't, conservatives don't. But the left, like I said, they're just off the scale. Wait for them.
So that will wrap up our discussion on left versus liberalism. I hope you all had a good time.